Hello everyone and welcome to Management 108 class. This chapter we will discuss on the strategic management process. Strategy is being defined as the direction and scope of an organization over the long term which achieves advantage in a changing environment through its configuration of resources and competencies with the aim of fulfilling stakeholder expectations. Strategy is management's overall plan and actions for deploying resources and skills, taking into consideration opportunities and threats in the environment. Now, what is strategic management on the other hand? Strategic management is the process through which organizations analyze and learn from their internal and external environments, establish strategic direction, create strategies that are intended to help achieve established goals, and execute those strategies, all in an effort to satisfy key organizational constituencies which are called stakeholders. The most successful organizations are able to acquire and manage resources and capabilities that provide competitive advantages. Furthermore, they are capable of managing and satisfying a wide range of external constituencies called stakeholders. Top managers play a pivotal role in this process as they help their companies interpret trends in the external environment, lead in the development of strategies, and oversee their execution. Now, we have here external environment analysis involves evaluation of the broad and task environment to determine trends, threats, and opportunities and to provide a foundation for strategic direction. The broad environment consists of domestic and global environment forces such as social cultural forces, technological forces, political or legal forces, and economic forces. The broad environment forms the context within which the firm and its task environment exist. Here we also have the task environment, which consists of the external stakeholders or the groups of individuals outside the organization that are significantly influenced by or have a major impact on the organization. All of the external stakeholders should be analyzed at both the domestic and international levels. Internal stakeholders, on the other hand, are in our internal environmental analysis, we identify our internal stakeholders such as those that include our managers, employees, and the owners and their representatives or the board of directors. A fully developed internal analysis includes an evaluation of internal stakeholders in the organization's resources and capabilities to determine its strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities for competitive advantage and to identify organizational vulnerabilities that should be corrected. Now let's proceed with SWOT analysis or SWOT. SWOT analysis is a useful technique for organizing an assessment of internal and external environmental sources of influence. The strengths are firm's resources and capabilities that can lead to a competitive advantage, such as the following. We have things that your company does well, the qualities that separate you from your competitors, the internal resources such as skilled, knowledgeable staff, and tangible assets such as intellectual property, capital, proprietary technologies, and others. Weaknesses now are resources and capabilities that the firm does not possess, but that those are necessary, resulting in a competitive disadvantage. So what are examples of these weaknesses? So these are the things your company lacks, things your competitors do better than you, resource limitations, and unclear unique selling propositions. We also have opportunities, which are conditions in the broad and task environments that allow a firm to take advantage of organizational strengths, overcome organizational weaknesses, and neutralize environmental threats such as the following. You have undeserved markets for specific products, few competitors in your area, emerging need for your products or services, and press or media coverage of your company. So these are your opportunities. While threats are conditions in the broad and task environment that may stand in the way of organizational competitiveness or the achievement of stakeholder satisfaction, such as follows. We have emerging competitors, changing regulatory environment, negative press or media coverage, and changing customer attitudes toward your company. Now, how might a SWOT analysis be used to help a firm develop its strategies? So we will discuss it during our synchronous meeting now. But for now, let's proceed with strategic direction. Strategic direction pertains to the longer-term goals and objectives and defines the purposes for which an organization exists and operates. Now, the one who will give us the direction are our leaders. No? So strategic leaders have a large impact on the strategies and performance of their firm. One of the most important responsibilities of a strategic leader is to establish direction. Strategic direction pertains to the enduring goals and objectives of the organization, and it encompasses a definition of the businesses in which a firm operates, its vision for the future, and its purpose. We have here an example. This is Tycoon, or one of the top tycoons in the Philippines, in the person of Mr. Ramon Ang of San Miguel Corporation. Ramon Ang is one of the top tycoons in the Philippines, having held several positions in renowned businesses in the likes of flag carrier of the country, Philippine Airlines, and Philippines' largest corporation, have San Miguel Corporation. Ang, a graduate of mechanical engineering of the Far Eastern University, started out as a trusted executive of Danding Coangco Jr., and Ang then made it to the top to become San Miguel Corporation's big boss, leading SMC to become Southeast Asia's largest publicly listed food, beverage, and packaging company. One of the things that make Ramon Ang different from other tycoons in the Philippines shall be his loyalty to his friend, Danding Coangco, and love for the business he works for. Of course, as a practical matter, there is no way to discuss purpose without also including a discussion of the ethics of the organization. Ethics, are the moral standards by which people judge behavior. Business ethics then pertain to the moral obligations of businesses to individuals, groups, and society as a whole. And more often than not, an organization's ethics are discussed in terms of its values. Organizational values define what matters when making decisions and what is rewarded and reinforced. For instance, organizations may promote values such as honesty, service, hard work, quality, or responsible treatment of stakeholders. Strategic direction may be contained in part of the firm's mission statement. Unlike short-term goals and strategies, the mission is an enduring part of planning processes within the organization. A well-established strategic direction provides guidance to the managers and employees who are largely responsible for carrying it out. It can also provide external stakeholders with a greater understanding of the organization and what it is seeking to accomplish. Now let's proceed with strategy formulation. Strategy formulation is divided into three types. We have corporate, business, and functional. A strategy is an organization, as mentioned a while ago, a strategy is an organizational plan of action intended to accomplish tasks and ultimately toward the achievement of its fundamental purposes. Corporate strategy formulation refers to domain definition or the selection of business areas in which the organization will compete. No? It's usually decided by the CEO and the board of directors. Business strategy formulation involves domain direction and navigation on how businesses compete in the areas they have selected. Functional strategy formulation contains the details of how the functional areas such as marketing, operations, finance, and research should work together to achieve the business level strategy. In diversified organizations, business strategy decisions are made by division heads or business unit managers. Functional decisions are made by functional managers who represent organizational areas such as operations, finance, personnel, accounting, research and development, or information systems. After you have formulated your strategy, we are now to implement it. No, the next step is the strategy implementation and control. It involves creating a pattern of decisions and actions that are intended to carry out a plan. It involves creating functional strategies, systems, structures, and processes needed by the organization in achieving strategic ends. Functional strategies outline the specific actions that each function must undertake to convert business and corporate level strategies into actions. Strategic control refers to the process that leads to adjustment in strategic direction, strategies, or the implementation plan when necessary. And usually, here, diagram showing the strategic management process. The strategic management process is usually not a sequential or linear as implied by the discussion. The activities are usually performed simultaneously with constant adjustments to assumptions, direction, strategy, and processes as new information is learned and new assessments are made. Here, strategic restructuring typically involves a renewed emphasis on the things an organization does well, combined with a variety of tactics to revitalize the organization and strengthen its competitive position. Early in the development of the field now called strategic management, the external environment was considered the primary determinant of which strategies would likely be successful. Environmental determinism suggests that good management is associated with determining which strategy will best fit environmental, technical, and human forces at a particular point in time and then working to carry it out. From a deterministic perspective, the most successful organization will be the one that best adapts to existing forces. Now, the industrial organization economics perspective. Now, we also have another perspective. Organization economics perspective is frequently referred to as structure conduct performance model, and that the basic argument is that the performance of an industry is dependent on the conduct of the firm it contains, which is dependent on the structure of the industry. Structure may be defined as factors that determine the competitiveness of the market, such as the demand conditions, supply conditions, technology, and barriers to the entry of new firms. Research naman supports the idea that while firm performance is determined in part by characteristics of the industries in which it participates, those characteristics are not the primary determinant of performance. The notion of adaptation has been supplemented by the principle of enactment, which assumes that organizations do not have to submit the existing forces in the environment. They can in part shape their environments through strategic actions. But in reality, the best run organizations are engaged in processes of adaptation and enactment, simultaneously influencing those parts of the environment over which the firm can exercise some control and adapting to environmental circumstances that are either uncontrollable or too costly to influence. The resource-based view of the firm takes the position that an organization is a bundle of resources. You have financial, physical, human knowledge, learning, and general organizational, from which a firm can draw, access raw materials, skills, training, backgrounds of the individuals within the firm, the knowledge and learning resources which help the firm to innovate and remain competitive, and the general organizational resources which includes a variety of factors that are peculiar to specific organization. If a resource that a firm possesses has value in allowing a firm to take advantage of opportunities or neutralize threats, if only a small number of firms possess it, if the organization is aware of the value of the resource and is taking advantage of it, and if it is difficult to imitate either by direct imitation or substitution for another resource, then it may lead to a sustainable competitive advantage. The stakeholder view of strategic management considers the organization from the perspective of the internal and external constituencies that have a strong interest in the activities and outcomes of an organization and upon whom the organization relies in order to achieve its own objectives. Stakeholder analysis involves identifying and prioritizing key stakeholders, assessing their needs, collecting ideas from them, integrating this knowledge into the strategic management process. Stakeholder management includes communicating with stakeholders, negotiating and contracting with stakeholders, managing relationships with them, and motivating them to behave in ways that are beneficial to the organization and its other stakeholders. Managers tend to devote attention to stakeholders that possess resources the firm needs to be successful or those that have the ability to influence business outcomes through political or coercive means. On the other hand, the principle of fairness suggests that a firm should pay the most attention to the needs of stakeholders that contribute the most to the value a firm creates. High-priority primary stakeholders tend to rank high in the fairness criterion and frequently also possesses resources the firm needs. The reason for managing for stakeholders is economically feasible is because it leads to behavior on the part of the stakeholders that help the firm create more value than might otherwise be created. Well-treated stakeholders reciprocate by treating the firm well in return. Examples of this sort of behavior include customers that express loyalty by buying more products or employees that work a little harder. In addition, highly skilled potential employees are likely to be attracted to the best employers. Also, community leaders are more likely to cooperate when a stakeholder-oriented firm has needs, whether this means approving a plant expansion or providing tax breaks. Firms that manage for stakeholders enjoy excellent reputations that make them more attractive to potential stakeholders, making it easier to attract business deals and obtain better resources. Mutual benefit may also motivate stakeholders to reveal valuable information that the firm can use to create even more value. Trust is essential to unlocking value-creating benefits. That is, a stakeholder is going to provide sensitive and potentially valuable information only to a trustworthy firm. Similarly, trustworthiness unlocks the benefits associated with reciprocal behavior and attraction of stakeholders. In addition, a firm with a trustworthy reputation can avoid value-destroying outcomes such as legal suits, adverse regulation, consumer boycotts, strikes, walkouts, and bad press. Avoiding negative stakeholder responses can reduce expenses as well as the risk of the risk a business faces. The strategic management process model upon which now our reference book is based to some degree on each of the theories and ideas that have been described in these sections. And strategic management also takes a global perspective. Okay. The world's markets are becoming increasingly globalized, and globalization means that there are increasing interdependencies between countries due to the flow of goods and services, knowledge and financial capital across borders. Global interdependencies make the business environment very complicated, which means it is much harder for managers to plan. Even if you're in Iligan, you can have competitors from Korea, Japan, China, through the use of e-commerce, no? So there is an increased interdependency, global interconnectedness, we are one, some sort of like that, no? Economic volatility has magnified planning difficulties because of the interconnectedness of national economies. Economic interconnections are especially evident when crises strike. Global interconnectedness has also increased the level of competition in many industries, as firms now have to compete with organizations from other countries, right? Because of global interconnectedness, economic turbulence, and hyper-competition, innovation is one of the most important factors driving competition in the 21st century. No, there might even come a time that here accountants from the Philippines can practice and use their license abroad. And those who are abroad or foreign individuals can use their licenses to practice accounting profession in the Philippines. So it can happen. So we need to equip ourselves with the necessary skills, to be have an advantage over other applicants in the field. It's not only on products, but also in services, may competition. Entrepreneurship can occur both within the firms and independently of them. In the reference material that we have, we are more interested in the type of entrepreneurship that occurs within firms. This type of entrepreneurship is sometimes called strategic entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship. Okay. One of the keys to innovation and entrepreneurship is to foster strategic thinking. And strategic thinking, by the way, class, is the term used to describe the creative aspects of strategic management. Focus on strategic intent or the overall vision of the organization, long-term orientation, consideration of past and present, systems perspective, ability to seize anticipated opportunities, and scientific approach, which involves generating ideas through a creative process, then testing them to see if they will work. There are several ways to foster strategic thinking. Organizations need to have the systems in place to identify and evaluate good ideas when they occur. Employees and managers should be encouraged to participate in strategic thinking and rewarded when they do. Organizations should integrate the elements of strategic thinking directly into their strategic planning processes. Organizations may need to provide managers and employees with training, sometimes through consultants, on how to think strategically. And organizations should foster a risk-taking atmosphere. So it really depends on how the company we're working on has their training needs analysis, wherein they provide the necessary trainings for you to be able to parang if this is a game, rank up to the game, parang ganun. And that would be all for chapter 1 on the strategic management process. Thank you. By the way, in the next chapter, we will be discussing the external environment. Okay? The broad environment, which includes social, cultural, economic, technological, and political or legal forces in the global business environment. So that would be on the next chapter. Thank you and keep safe, everyone.